Hello, 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 and welcome back to all of our adoring fans out there to the latest installment of Shook's Privacy and Data Security Chats. It's been a while since we've been on the air, so today the word of the day is hiatus, which everyone knows is Latin for blame it on the pandemic. Setting that aside, today the topic of our conversation is comprehensive state privacy laws and legislation. And joining me today are the newest members of our privacy team, Brittany Wilson and Bill Walberg. So welcome, Brittany, Bill. Introduce yourselves to the people at home and then tell me, would you rather be trapped in an elevator with Oprah or Zach Galifianakis? Brittany, you first.
What an intro. My name is Brittany Wilson, and I'm an associate in Shook's San Francisco office. And the answer to that question would have to be Zach Galifianakis, because he's funnier. Much like you.
You just angered a lot of Oprah fans, by the way. I'm just going to let you know that right now.
He doesn't have book club.
Yeah. Bill, your turn.
My name is Bill Walberg. I'm an associate in the Shook's Kansas City office. And I originally thought you were going to say Zac Efron, and that would have been my answer, hands down, but I will go with Oprah in this situation. Much preferred.
And my answer would be, I don't know. I was the one asking the question, so I don't have to answer it. Anyway, like I said, we're talking about comprehensive privacy bills and laws, both of them. So there are, we're talking at the state level. There are laws that have been passed, like the CCPA, as we all know, and the recent Virginia law that passed. But there are also a number of pending bills in states across the country that we regularly track and we look at. And we're just going to our chat today is to kind of take a look at the contours of these and kind of the status and the trends that we're seeing. And the first one that I want to talk about is the Washington Privacy Act. And I may nickname this one the bad luck bill, because this year was the third year in a row that the Washington Privacy Act was introduced, and the third year that it didn't make it across the line. Now, I believe it will carry over to 2022, so I'm pretty sure we're going to see it next year and see if it'll pass that year. But this year it did not pass, and I believe the issue with it again this year was the private right of action. That's kind of what killed it the past couple of years. Is there's this fundamental ideological difference among the parties in our fair republic about the presence and scope of a private right of action under these bills. And the Washington Privacy Act, the way it was introduced this year, did not have a private right of action, and it was passed by the Washington Senate, the state of Washington, that is. And the Washington House added I believe it was a pretty restricted private right of action, mostly just allowing for injunctive relief and maybe attorney's fees. And that was still enough to kill the bill for this year. But the next kind of law bill that we want to talk about is the Virginia law. And, the reason I want to talk about it next is because it was really modeled off the Washington Privacy Act. So we had the CCPA first, and we kind of understand the way the CCPA is structured. When Washington Privacy Act was first introduced, it was a different structure, kind of more GDPR influence than the CCPA originally was. And then this year, the Virginia law, the Consumer Data Protection Act, it passed pretty quickly. And, it doesn't have a private right of action, but it's very GDPR influenced, but it's also taking kind of concepts from the CCPA as well. We have, GDPR concepts like controller, processor, personal data, similar rights, access, rectification, deletion, but it also has a ton of exceptions as well. That's kind of the trend that we're seeing. That I've seen anyway, is that as these bills are introduced and passed in some instances, we're starting to see this convergence between kind of the American CCPA approach and the GDPR approach, to where it's kind of getting all mashed together in a big pile of privacy fun. The Virginia law, the big takeaway on that one for now is that it doesn't go into effect until January 1st, 2023, which, gives all of us quite a bit of time to, bite our fingernails down to nubs before we really have to start worrying about it. But the next one to talk about, and the one that most people have probably heard about, is the California Privacy Rights Act. I'm going to turn it over to Brittany to tell us a little bit more about that. What's going on with the CPRA, Brittany?
Colman. The CPRA was a ballot initiative that passed last November in California and became law shortly after in December. The CPRA is like a CCPA 2.0. It substantially amends and amplifies the requirements of the CCPA, but it's not a new law. And it really brings California's privacy law closer in many respects to Europe's GDPR. It creates a lot of new rights and definitions. For example, it creates a new category of PI called sensitive PI and provides consumers with a new right to limit the use and disclosure of their SPI. And that sort of brings California's law closer to the GDPR as well. It creates new consumer rights that also move it closer to GDPR. And it also creates an overarching purpose limitation obligation like the GDPR. Slightly different, it's not exactly mirroring, but again, just as a lot of this new legislation is popping up, similarly, it is kind of moving in that direction. The CPRA also creates a new agency to enforce the CCPA. It was previously enforced by the Attorney General's office. They have a lot going on always, so this does create a new agency called California Privacy Protection Agency. And actually, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, the 5 board members were appointed for that. And then the new rights and obligations come fully operable January 1st, 2023, but there are some rolling series of implementation dates between now and then.
Yeah, I think if I recall correctly, which there's no guarantee. The CPRA went into effect immediately, mostly because the new agency that you talk about had to get funding and get all the wheels started on that. So the law needed to go into effect immediately, but all the rights and obligations don't become operative until January 1st, 2023, which, same date as the Virginia law that we were talking about, which is both helpful and terrifying at the same time, because, you don't have to worry about different deadlines to hit with them, but that just means that if you sit on your hands until December of 2022, it's going to be a really, really, bad period around the holidays for you. But anyway, thank you, Brittany. We're going to move on to a Florida bill that has been a hot topic, or at least in our firm. There's been a lot of email traffic about it. Our boss, L.L.P, who is a wonderful privacy lawyer, the best one in Florida, in my opinion, and in the opinion of a lot of people, he's been doing mad work, blogging and following this law. But he's been so busy that we thought we'd give him a break and allow Bill to show his bona fides and tell us about this bill and what's going on with it, because it's been crazy, right, Bill?
Yeah, it's been wild. It's been like a tennis match between the House and the Senate with their different versions of the bills. Both the House and the Senate introduced very similar bills a couple months ago, but so much has changed and so much will change in the next 24 hours because the legislative session ends tomorrow. So it's a race to the finish line. But the House bill, the House kind of took a step forward with their legislation and pretty much model it after the CCPA. But the Senate, within the last few weeks, decided to take a step back and actually eliminated the private right of action to their bill, which is one of the key aspects of these bills that are popping up across the country. So it's pretty significant that the Senate eliminated it. It still is within the House bill, so they're going to have to figure that one out. But the House did introduce an amendment to eliminate that that private right of action. So we'll see what happens there. But the kind of the overview of what's going on in the Senate, they've made the requirements for the businesses a little bit stricter than the CCPA. It said 25 million gross revenues across the country for businesses. They would have to hit a 50 million gross revenue, buy or receive personal information for 50,000 plus consumers, or half of their revenue come from selling or sharing personal information. So the CCPA, you just need to hit one of those three thresholds to be subjected to this legislation. Under the Florida Senate bill, you have to hit two of those three requirements. So yeah, we're just, Colman, it's going to be a wild next 24 hours to see if they can come to some sort of agreement between the House and the Senate, or if it even makes the finish line. And if it doesn't happen tomorrow, are they going to set a special session?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, the last time I checked, the effective date was going to be July 1st of 2022. I don't know if that's changed. Do you know if that changed in all these amendments that have been popping up?
I don't think the effective date has changed. I think it's the same. But yeah,
I mean, that's going to complicate things for a lot of businesses. I mean, the first thing that you're going to have to consider is, am I hitting those thresholds, right? Because that'll be a big consideration whether you have to comply at all, right? And then you have to think about, am I going to be hitting those thresholds when the law goes into effect as well? And then how am I going to spend, the first 6 months of 2022 versus the last 6 months? Because, if I'm having to prepare for this Florida law in the middle of July, or the beginning of July, in the middle of the year, and then I have to sprint the next 6 months to get ready for the CPRA amendments to the CCPA and this new Virginia law. It's going to be an interesting division of forces, if you will. And also the craziness you talk about in the next 24 hours to see what happens. I remember a couple of years ago when I was tracking all the amendments to the CCPA, before it went into effect, there were a ton of amendments that were being proposed because that whole process was just so rushed and the drafting was bad. So there were a lot of amendments, and I remember sitting at my computer with the audio on to California legislative debates, and I tell you, it was riveting. I can't tell you how many times I had to get up and go get coffee. Anyway, it'll probably go more in the Florida legislature, but that's kind of one of the things we're seeing is, Florida kind of popped up out of nowhere with this bill. I mean, we can speculate as to the motivations, but the bill was not filed all that long ago and proceeded pretty quickly. And there's been just a flurry of activity. The past couple of years, states have been introducing these bills. It doesn't look like there's, it never really seemed like there was a ton of energy behind them, though, at the time. But this year has felt a little different. What do you think, Brittany?
Yeah, no, it's been a flurry. There's been a flurry of bills all over the country that our team has been tracking diligently on a daily basis. And we don't know if these bills are going to go anywhere. And some of them have already failed. But I mean, we have bills coming out of places like Alabama, Alaska, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, and Oklahoma, Pennsylvania. There's a pretty long list here, and again, they're comprehensive bills, and they're trending toward with some American quirks, kind of like the CCPA, or actually the CPRA at this point.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. There's so many states out there that have these bills pending or introduce them, and they may have failed. Most states, their legislative sessions just go from January to sometime in the spring, but there are states that go all year long. And they vary, which makes it so interesting, so much fun to try and track these things because state legislature websites are notoriously difficult to find any information on them when you're actually looking for something, despite, the websites are crammed with information, but nothing of which you really want to look at the time. Anyway, as Brittany said, these bills are, we're seeing this convergence that we've talked about already of moving from just the strict CCPA versus GDPR approach to kind of a blending, a convergence of them. And, personally, I expect that to continue. I mean, it seems like, the kind of the format and the rights and obligations that we're seeing from the CPRA and the Virginia law, I expect that to be the model going forward. Whether and when any more of these bills pass, up in the air. We really can never predict it with certainty. And I mean, that always brings up the question of, is there going to be a federal bill at some point? And I can say with confidence there will be a bill, but I'm also equally confident that it probably won't pass until something, earth-shaking happens to move Congress to that kind of action. But anyway, I don't want to take too much of your time out there in the inner tube land. So I'm going to say thank you to Brittany and Bill. It's been wonderful talking to you. And, we should do a Zoom call sometime, I guess, just to hang out or something and chat. Or maybe we just did.
Yeah. I'll never turn down a Zoom call.
Yeah, anytime. Okay. Thank you, everybody. And we will talk to you again.